if I could just add that, that's, when the terminology used, one of the things, or the RCS1 soils, which is, apparently may be an issue, that's not remediation waste, that's non-reportable type concentrations. It's not considered remediation waste under the Massachusetts contingency plan. So that's just material that can't find a home in the state easily, that's taken from locations that aren't release sites, that aren't, any compound within it doesn't have an exceedance of what triggers Mass DEP and MCP regulations. So they're not considered remediation waste. They're just being used to bring up the grades. And the reason why, there is a little bit of there's a cost component to this project that's huge, you know, to do what we need to do. So to make it feasible, that's a beneficial reuse. And it meets the provisional the guidance that's available for reuse of RCS1 soils, less than RCS1 soils. So it meets what Mass DEP's put out there for that kind of beneficial use. Dennis mentioned the 100,000. 100,000 DEP in 2015 had a policy that was put in place because they were filling in quarries with this kind of stuff in large areas where we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cubic yards. They just wanted to have at least some say. So they gave towns some, you have to do an administrative consent order when you have something like that. We're not looking at something like that, and we're keeping it less than that as far as the volume. We don't, right as of now, have any interest. We need about 130, I think, but we need to clean, you know, the more virgin native soil at the surface for the cemetery area and as a final cap. The other thing is just keep in mind that, as he mentioned, that Dennis mentioned, that this was an unpermitted dump. So we're following the regulations, the MCP regulations, not landfill regulations. So it's a big component to this, and that's the way Mass DEP steers you when you get in situations like this, versus a landfill like a city landfill, which could go either way based on the time frame. It was prior to 1970. This one was used prior to 1970, but there's no indication that they ever had a permit to do what they were doing.
I'm sure there's,
Yeah.
there's none.
I guess I only spoke to local permitting. There's a large state level permitting with Mass DEP, and we've been working, Mass DEP, not Wetland Bureau, but the MCP World.
Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup, yeah.
So
Yep.
that's kind of in conjunction with the town.
And what's the status of that filing?
So right now we have, we've had reporting because we've been doing groundwater monitoring. We've had a phase 1 tier classification submitted. We've had an interim phase 2, which is called a comprehensive site assessment.
Right.
We had phase 3 remedial evaluation. This was a site a year plus ago that we went to Mass DEP. There's a new policy coming out. It's supposed to be COM 25. I mentioned the one that was in 15 for the reclamation projects. DEP is looking at, because of the difficulty in getting rid of soil in this state and to find a home for it, and the cost implications for all the work that's gone on and all the development in Boston being the key area, whatever, but throughout the state, there's no place to bring soils. There is no place. Landfills here are, you know, for capping material, a lot of them are closing. They don't need it. So you had that mess. I'm talking levels that are higher than what we have. And I'm not higher than we have, what we're asking for, or what we're planning on for the RCS1. Those are different. Those aren't like a remediation waste. What I'm saying, like, that go to landfills in the state, remediation waste, go for capping materials. But a lot of that can even go into the state for capping materials at a landfill, like a permitted landfill. They end up going out of state, New Hampshire and so on and so forth. So there's a policy that's in play that to try to bring more contaminated soils to a similar site like this, like remediation waste. So we initially, when we filed something the previous summer, had talked about maybe that option. We've taken that off the table. We're just doing the easy approach, which is just following the policy, less than RCS1 soils. So we're going to have a phase 2, phase 3, which is a remedial evaluation this fall. We've been waiting for the permits to come through. And then after that, there's like it's a remediation plan that gets submitted to Mass DEP. It's called under phase 4. And then you do the work under that. And we ultimately get to a permanent solution statement, closing out the site with an AUL on the property as activity use limitation. Just saying, basically, you can't disturb the soil, you can't disturb the cap. Again, we're going to have a huge, this is a different one than what I'm used to. I'm used to just putting 3 feet of clean, or even 2, with a warning barrier over a property. In a lot of cases, when you can't, the cost implications are millions and millions of dollars to get rid of all this stuff. So we probably mentioned that the first time we were here. So that remedial alternative is not there. to do that.
So I'm curious, when you did the groundwater testing, how deep did you go?
So we have four groundwater monitoring wells that are in the shallow overburden well, aquifer. And then we have one deep well that's in bedrock. And that's sort of at the center of the site.
And what are the results?
We had one hit in the shallow well in the center of the site that was just slightly above what's called the drinking water standard. And the only reason why drinking water standards applied to the site is because of the two residences that abut it, that have private well drinking well, water wells. We were able to get access to one, they let us in, they sampled it. The one to the north, which is actually in Leicester, he wouldn't answer, or the folks there wouldn't answer. Their bedrock well, we looked up their well log, and Mass DEP has a lot of well logs that are available, it's like 380 feet. Our bedrock well's at 30, and we had non-detects in the bedrock well. So it's just tick above for what's called GW1 standards because of drinking water. The other standards that apply to the site are called GW3 standards. Those are protective of surface water impacts, well below those. I mean, we're orders of magnitude well below those. We don't have an issue in groundwater relative to migration off-site in the chance that it would impact like a surface water line.
Can you provide those to us?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're public record. There's all there, but I could give it to the website. Whatever you need for copies or.
I think they're,
I don't think in the end why we have much for data. I don't think we submitted like groundwater data.
Right.
We just notified, actually, we closed out the issue with that GW1 because we sampled 4 times, 5 actually. And the issue with it, the compound that was a hit, there's one compound, it's like a chlorinated solvent, that detection bounces around, the level's 5 parts per million. We've had it at between 1.7 and 12. And then in the bedrock, we've had non-detect. And then the wells down gradient by Cemetery Road, non-detect. And the wells to the north and to the south by the properties, non-detect. It's not showing up. It's just a little pocket that's just staying there. And it's probably gonna, over time, go away, because it does naturally degrade. It's organic.
Or you could dig it out.
It's not something you dig out in the groundwater. You can maybe treat it, but there's no way we don't need to treat it. There's no push to treat it. Yeah.
All right.
But the contaminants are really in the soils, because we don't have that in the soil, are metals and what are called PHs, semi-volatile organic compounds, which are typical of fill. You see it everywhere.
Any plastic in there?
In the debris that we mostly saw was metal, a lot of metal. I forget what else we highlighted in the.
wood.
I mean, there's a little bit of wood.
Asphalt.
Yeah, you do that kind of construction. If it's sporadic, as far as we've done PFAS sampling, there was PFAS in the wells, yeah, and they were below. So we haven't seen that. So yeah, it's.
Okay, I have no other questions. Michelle?
Yeah, I have a question. So, it's not what's there already, because it seems like that is okay from, again, the study that you've already done. It's what is going to be brought in, and I understand that you're saying that it's projected to be.
No, it will be tested. It's not projected. It will be tested.
It has
yeah.
to be tested.
Because I'm the LSP of record for the site, so ultimately I'm going to close this out with a permanent solution. I got to say what that cap is, and I got to have data support that. So I'm going to have data every 500 cubic yards, and we could be more restrictive, to certain folks if we're looking at the data and say, yeah, where it came from. Because basically what an LSP will say, and a good example I mentioned in last night's meeting with the planning board is, right now there's a project going on in 495, right by the turnpike. All, with all the roads, I don't know if you've driven on that many times.
Actually I have.
Ton of soil. It's going to Grafton landfill right now. It's going to an RCS1 area, and Grafton landfill has an RCS1 area, and then they have the landfill that they're capped in with regular materials, a little higher. That's a remediation waste. That kind of soil doesn't have much in it. That's hopefully what we're going to find for projects around here.
Well, as we meet tonight, do you have a source of the material?
No, what happens is this goes out, and Dennis knows this well very well with some of the WL French's, other work. There's other companies that do this charter. A lot of them, they take these projects on, they run it. They are the ones that will find, because they do a lot of that kind of work, and they're going to look for, and they'll take it from other projects that they're not involved with. But me as the LSP, I'll be looking at the packages that come in, they'll be sampling the data. We do this all the time for trying to get into facilities like RCS1 facilities as well. And sampling the data, and they have to have a site history. They gotta name any kind of release condition that was near the site, that if it had any potential impact, that LSP has to say, no, that this isn't a remediation waste.
Mhm.
This is just low levels of contaminants that are in, could be a fill material. And they meet all the parameters that we set. So, there's a quality control that's set up for these. They do this at a lot of landfills anyhow. They'll sample every once in a while themselves, just to make sure. But again, the numbers that we're gonna have and/or that are in place are so much higher. You know what I mean, and soil that's staying on site, that's already there from the earlier impacts from the dump. So,
Okay.
Okay, so there's that. So, depending upon, so that's gonna happen. Like you said, there was that one spot that had a higher degree of contamination in that test pit than the other areas.
it's a
So when you're
groundwater well,
testing-
yeah.
You could be testing an area or a part of that 100,000 cubic feet of sand or gravel or whatever you're bringing in and miss it. So, moving forward, the best management practice, it looks as though you're not going to be testing that soil or water, those test pits. Are you going to be testing those test pits moving forward after the project's done, or are you just gonna kind of
I'm not sure
leave
what you
it?
mean by test pits.
Are you going to, the test pits, did they, at the planning board, say that you needed to keep those test pits in place?
So there's groundwater monitoring.
Oh,
wells.
you're
That's
talking
where we
about the
found the
monitoring wells.
water.
Monitoring wells.
Yeah, that sample, so, I don't know if you've seen, it's like a 2-inch PVC that goes down into the groundwater table.
Yeah.
So we have 4 of those there. Groundwater table, the grade by the road, we have one that's down there. That, actually, the well log for that, we didn't put that one in, actually said there's no debris there. So that's where we know that sort of the cutoff is like, that's where it just sort of levels out before the road. So then it goes steep up the hill, and if you've seen the site, you know how it's just, it's very,
Yes.
jaggedy or whatever, and stuff sticking out. But those wells, the monitoring wells, they, we probably will damage them when we're doing the work, but ultimately after, we could put monitoring wells in after. Not that we expect anything different as far as any change in the groundwater concentrations for what we have. Because Dennis can speak to this much more. What we're building is such an improvement to what's there. For the drainage and the infiltration, we're
Right.
taking that away.
I
you know?
get that.
Yeah.
But you're also putting, you're saying 8 feet above, so the cap is gonna happen, and on top of what's already there.
Yep.
With the contaminated soil, and then you're putting virgin soil on top, and that's where you're gonna be burying people.
So,
Oh, yeah.
yes, generally this, so the grade, there's a significant grade
Significant.
change on the site, so.
Okay.
Some are like, at general, just for discussion purposes, there's areas of the site that there's no fill, and then there's areas of site with 30 feet of fill. And then on top of the RCS1 soils,
15 boats at max right now. Oh, what you're saying when we build up? Yes,
Exactly.
Yes.
in the burial area, there's 8 feet of clean material, virgin material, that's not contaminated. The side slopes where there's, it's much steeper, where there's gonna be no plots, is 3 feet of clean material.
Okay.
Yep.
But people are people. And when they're digging, that could be disturbed theoretically?
For the plots?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have a warning barrier down, like we'll actually put something down where we reach the end of ours, and then we put the clean. And so he has no intention, like when we do this, they don't wanna be
I got
moving
you.
that soil, so they're gonna.
But
they're
accidents
actually- Yeah, so we could put like, we sometimes at sites, we put like an orange Marafi, or like a snow fence, and with filter fabric.
A
and you say-
geotextile
a
fabric.
geotech, and it just says, it filters through with groundwater, for surface water, and it gets down through there. But that just is just to say, hey, you're at that point that you may be disturbing into the, really, for our cases, RCS1 soils, which really aren't that bad. Below that is the contaminated stuff. Some of the areas we may have just the 3 feet of the cap, or 2 feet, really, we're gonna, in some place. But the cap will be on top of the soil that's there now, not the soil we're bringing in.
So groovy.
So,
So, obviously, so you're saying it's not a problem. right? Basically, it's not gonna be a problem.
I would say it's a significant improvement
Improvement.
over the
Okay,
existing
great.
conditions.
So if we leave these test pits in, how much is it going to, you're spending all of this
So
money,
there's-
how much
there's
is it
no-
gonna be if you actually just test the water to make
There's
sure that
no-
it isn't? It's like an insurance policy
Oh,
for
the
the people of
monitoring
Auburn.
wells, you're saying? You mean?
Yeah,
those-
the monitoring-
Yeah,
the-
yeah,
how much
those,
is that
those
in-
won't be a
So
problem, yeah.
Mass DEP does not,
I know they don't require it.
no, I'm not saying they don't require it.
Oh, okay.
Mass DEP is recommending remediation of the site. Doing nothing is not. it would
An
be-
option.
It would be.
Yeah,
I'm sure
he's
The
basically,
applicant would prefer to do.
unfortunately, yeah, that's the other thing. He's
But-
in the system now, and he's gonna have to pay
Right,
annual
and,
compliance fees.
and this
the
goes
whole
back
bit.
to the original conversation
Yeah.
where I asked him if he had done a 21E and he said no. But in any event, that's
So now we're, exactly.
water under the
So we're
bridge.
at the same
So I think,
place.
I think Michelle's point is, I think she, to allay her concerns, that monitoring wells be maintained after the construction's done.
Or replaced. if it could,
Or
yeah.
replaced
Yeah.
for some period of time.
I don't overall have an issue with that, and we could show that the order of magnitude in the groundwater relative to potential impact to the, with our concern here would be more wetlands or anything else.
Right, I understand.
Would be, that we're significantly below those numbers, we're not seeing it.
So an ongoing monitoring plan, and I'm just gonna say for 4 years, if it's consistent and there's no
Yeah.
ongoing contamination,
Then you can take them out
then, or just, yeah.
Yeah,
then,
we're just
just-
gonna leave,
we're
we
just-
could always
yeah.
use
leave
it
'em.
again.
They can
Yeah.
stay there.
and
They're
stop,
not
and
gonna
stop
go anywhere.
They're easy.
taking samples.
Yeah,
When do you think you're gonna close out with DEP? Sometime next year?
it's gonna take a little longer than
It's
that.
October.
Yeah.
So
it's-
26?
I hope not.
All right, but if it's October 24, you see at least another year?
The world of soil is where it comes into play. As far as having all construction done in the cemetery. you
Having,
know.
no,
I'm
it's
talking about
the-
satisfying DEP.
Oh, satisfy. I
Spring.
can't satisfy DEP until we have it capped, basically. And
Okay.
I reach that point. Yeah, so that's not happening.
Are you saying, sorry, I just
Go
want
ahead.
to understand the question
Sure.
correctly. Is it okay to bring, is your question, when is DEP going to say, okay, you can bring material in? Or when is DEP going to say, the site has been remediated, capped, AUL?
DEP won't have any say really relative to the material come in, but we do want to meet with them, because we're following the rules and regulations.
I understand.
You know, so, and the Bureau of Wayside Cleanup in the MCP program is a privatized program, so the site will be audited, no matter what. It's gonna have an AUL on it. There's no, you always automatically get audited once you put an AUL on the property, so that's
How
one
often?
piece. How often?
Will you get audited?
Well, the AUL will get audited itself. You could get audited anytime during the construction, like when we make our submittal, which would be the phase 4, even the phase 2, phase 3, if they want to audit and ask
Okay.
questions. Now, we met with them a year ago, or in June a year ago, so a year and 3 months, but, so they're aware of this, they're very aware of this project and the condition that, or the circumstances that our client ended up with, and they understand what the approach was, and they thought, the idea of the ultimate cemetery use was a great idea.
Mhm.
They just knew that you had to get through the hurdles. In fact, because of that meeting, we went back and did, actually, when you were bringing up, Michelle was bringing up test pits, we did like 15 test pits and sampled a lot more soil than had been done before, because the earlier consultant hadn't done a lot of that.
Mhm.
So we got a good gauge of more indication of what kind of contaminations are in the soils that are there, in part because of that meeting. And we also took off the table, knowing that they were not in that stage of potentially looking at sites like this to maybe bring in more contaminated soils because of the high levels that we have there already. And we just took it off the table because of the outcome of that meeting. We just said, all right, let's go the easier approach. Let's just do less than RCS1 soils, raise the grades that we need, and finish the surface with the cemetery.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Do you, Michelle?
No.
Megan?
Yeah.
I've brought up a few times, like the infestation of knotweed there, and if there was a vegetation management plan that would be,
As part of the soil management plan for the project, which will be required, there will be a vegetation management plan specific to knotweed, and I was out there earlier today.
there is what?
A lot of knotweed.
Yes.
That you see, yeah.
So knotweed will be managed by cutting treating it with herbicides, the roots.
It's not gonna get rid of it.
Nothing does.
So,
It's the,
What herbicide and, like, specifically?
I am going to butcher the name, but basically a Roundup type of material.
Glyphosate,
Yes, it starts
Yeah.
with a G.
yeah, glyphosate's what's recommended. I just,
will it change a lot though, as far as I don't know enough about it, I'm not wetlands, or just that kind of, like, where that is, those grades will change, I know it can still have that basic growth through, what we're gonna be, but we're gonna be capping, so a lot of that area, and I think it's on the lower slopes more, right?
I
It doesn't go up to
did
the.
not go all the way
Yeah,
up,
up in
but
there,
it
yeah.
is absolutely the first
Right.
20 feet of the roadway.
right,
Yeah.
I mean, it can grow up through substantially thick layers. I don't know what the maximum extent of that is, but 3 feet, like, if like those areas where there's not as much of a cap, I mean,
We get a lot of our drainage controls and engineered drainage control areas with, I don't know, all the surfaces, all the materials that are at the surface of the gravel and or, the line that, for the
Yeah,
flow.
so that,
On the lower sides, and then we have grass in other areas, so they're not gonna wanna see this stuff going up either.
no,
by
and,
no
I
means.
mean, it's, it's a cemetery, it's not gonna be good for
chokes everything out.
headstones
Oh,
or
up on the top, yeah.
anything either.
And I know the plan's probably not right in front of you, but if the cemetery is a little higher, so there will be a slope without the cemetery plots, if you will. The cemetery, I don't know the distance from the road, but the cemetery use as that road comes up and where the plots are on pretty high ground. There's no way that we would be up there, because that's where we're gonna have 20-plus feet of additional stuff that's not already there now, raising those grades, so I wouldn't think that
So
any
to
of that would
answer
ever be
your
there.
question, I think it's a fair thing to assume or condition that invasives will be managed according with like best practices. And I think they're probably, at least along the roadway, like an ongoing, for the first couple of years,
Yeah.
management. And we never actually answered your question about when the project is ending. By the time the roadway is constructed and the material is placed at the plateau, like, this is not a 3-month project. So I think there will be multiple growing seasons that
Sure.
the commission will be somewhat involved in the project to.
Erosion controls, I believe.
Yeah, for erosion
Yeah.
control, sedimentation control, and just being, it's at least a year, maybe 2-year project. It may be able to phase it, so.
Well,
they-
that's a good question. I mean, will you actually, you construct this in phases, correct?
Somewhat dependent on if all of a sudden, I'm just gonna say WPI wants to build a huge building in downtown Worcester and there's 100,000 yards of material, it may go really fast. Most likely, this is going to be a phased project where, the applicant wants to get cemetery plots as soon as possible.
Right.
Because the soil is just I don't wanna say a bonus or a way to facilitate the cemetery.
Right.
So I would expect that the access road will be constructed, or invasives will be removed, get the erosion controls in place, get the access road in place, build the access road, get a portion, probably the southern portion of the site, get some plots installed there that aren't going to impede the operations, and then work themselves into the site. The contractor could look at me and say I'm totally wrong and they want to do it the other way, but I will let them decide.
Well, I mean, that seems like a logical way to approach it.
I'm just taking a best guess.
Sure.
So, from a invasives management standpoint, I would expect that there's gonna be multiple growing seasons when there's gonna be a contractor out there that can be, when we can somewhat condition that they're responsible for the invasive management as part of, like, just an ongoing maintenance on that.
So you said that there will be like a soil management plan?
Yes.
Will that be submitted, like?
Yeah, you
Yes.
can make that a condition,
Okay.
yeah.
So, and that includes, like,
We'll have the,
stabilization, compaction, testing requirements, erosion sedimentation control, phasing. This can be constructed in a way to help limit and berm erosion or water leaving the site by building that downhill side up, so it creates almost like a swimming pool, just to help control just given the volume of material coming in. And our typical soil management plans have all that in place, in addition to like general VMPs that are in this as well. So, for stabilization and just managing the volume
questions? Gentlemen? Okay, so Michelle,
No, what's that?
so gentlemen, is it your intention to close the public hearing tonight?
I think that would be great if you can condition it, knowing that we still have to get in front of the ZBA, for, standard all applicable local, federal, state permits, we're gonna go in front of DEP. Would it be a 3-year?
3-year,
Okay,
that's right.
order of conditions?
And then you can always file a request to
That is-
extend it.
Yeah, that's,
Which, applicants do all the time.
yeah, I mean, I think the goal would be to close out the order, at least the work in the buffer zone by then, but
Right.
an extension is, I totally
And
anticipate it.
what I'm thinking also is that, for example, to your point, if this project is done in phases, perhaps when, a certain phase is complete, you let us know, we make an inspection, something
Mhm.
like that.
Sure.
And, I think the applicant, I'm gonna just speak for you, but we would welcome the commission on the site whenever. It's definitely a different project, and it's, at least in my opinion, a good reuse of not only capping the waste, but it provides a new cemetery for a parcel that would most likely be abandoned, like,
Or used for illegal purposes.
exactly,
Understood.
so.
All right, I have no other questions. Is there any public comment? All right, there being none, is there a motion to close?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Do
All
we
those-
have, oh, sorry, do we have the DEP number, right?
I'm sure we do have the
Okay,
DEP.
I don't, usually it's written on here, but maybe
I
not,
would-
maybe I'm wrong about that.
I can look it up, I hope so.
I mean, it's
been
been-
in June. Do
Pending since
Hey,
May,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah,
you want me to get the number?
no.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? It's a vote. All right, gentlemen. I can't guarantee that we'll get the order conditions out tonight, because I think there's a lot that we want to put into it.
I think
It's
we're.
okay, we got some time to
We
do
got
other
plenty of
things,
time.
yeah,
So-
this fall.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it, thank you. Good luck, guys.
Okay. Well, that took longer than I thought. The next item on our agenda is the 7:05 public hearing, Timothy Johnson, notice of intent for property at 25 Vinyl Street. Is there a motion open?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Is anyone here for Mr. Johnson?
They forget.
I don't know. It's not my responsibility to remind them.
No.
All right, why don't we just hold this in advance? Maybe they show up, maybe they don't. Next matter on our agenda is 7:10 public hearing, Joe Goodman, notice of intent for property located at 9 Maria Avenue in Auburn. Is there a motion open?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Oh, hello.
Good evening.
And you are?
Kate O'Donnell from Ecotech,
Hi,
wetland
Kate.
scientist.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Joe Goodman, from Quality Worcester. He reached out to us in June of this year in response to a letter he received from the commission regarding site work at Maria Avenue that was conducted without a permit. We evaluated the site in June and determined that there was some site work done at the site, and we delineated the wetland resource areas, and we provided, or the surveyor prepared a site plan, and the wetland flags are shown on the plan, which is at the bottom of the steep slope down here, and also the 100-foot buffer zone and 25-foot buffer zone is on the plan as well.
Okay.
The work that was done at the site includes the installation of some erosion control barriers around the limit of work, some vegetation removal, including some trees and other just general land disturbance. As of our site evaluation, the entire site was stabilized with vegetation, and then all the work is outside of that 25-foot no disturbance zone under the Auburn bylaw. And as of right now, there's no further activity proposed on the 9 Maria Avenue. So there's actually a property line right like here-ish This is 9 Maria Avenue, and then this is 7. So this foundation is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. So all the activity within the 100-foot buffer zone, which is this area, is what we're looking for permission after the fact of the activity completed. We're looking for permission from the commission for that with this notice of intent. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Does Mr. Goodman know that when he's like near a waterway, that he actually has to apply for a permit?
I have no idea, honestly. You know, he reached out to us when receiving your letter. It's not uncommon that people just don't know.
He's been before us before. a
Okay.
few times.
Yeah, I mean, it is a steep slope, so like, this is like 20 feet of grade, so.
We've
when
been
you're-
there.
We've been
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, when you're like looking down, you might not see it, but if you have to go all the way down.
I
the
mean,
slope's
is
really
that
steep.
slope stabilized? Cause it's mighty steep.
Yeah.
There is vegetation there.
I mean, when I initially
we
saw it, I
went
thought
there.
maybe it needed to be armored, to be honest with you.
The end of
because-
Maria Ave was really, I mean, a good rainstorm would, whatever's
We
there
were
would
there
wash
once.
it, scour it right out. I mean, you were on the site, you saw it, it was
Okay.
pretty bad. It
Yeah.
definitely needs some.
So some riprap you're looking for?
Well, I'm thinking yes.
Okay.
I mean, we haven't been out there probably since the spring, as I
Yeah.
recall.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
probably-
think he has a hydroseeder, so he had hydroseeded when I went out there in June, and there was vegetation growing all over.
But I think to Tom's point, I think because that slope is so steep, I think a good rainstorm could certainly, of course, scouring
Wash
it,
it right out.
and would definitely result in an impact to the wetland area
So-
below.
Okay.
It's just like, it's just grass is the vegetation
Yes,
there?
it was hydroseeded with, like, I think a native grass. Yeah. I walked down it, it wasn't slipping or anything, it was stable to me, but, you know, if you wanna have riprap on there, I can discuss with Joe.
Well, I think what we wanna do is, I think we'd like to take a look again,
Okay.
see how it's
I'm not
changed
either.
Sure.
since we went there in the spring, and then perhaps, you know, we can give you some further thoughts, but I know when we first went out there, riprap was definitely something that I thought was necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not personally pro riprap if it's not needed.
Okay.
I mean, so, I
What
mean,
did
yeah, I
riprap-
definitely wanna look at it.
What did riprap ever do to you?
Well, I mean, it's not really
It
like
creates
a
impervious
natural
area, I get it.
substrate, and it eats up, you know, I mean, it's hotter, it has like thermal impacts, it's not, you know, I mean,
Okay.
Right.
if it's, I mean, I see
I would-
sometimes you need to use it, but I mean,
Would rather a wild meadow there for plants, for the bees.
Okay.
It is a meadow right now,
It's a
when
So
I saw it. I can show
maybe
you
more
photos too. if
pretty
you guys want.
flowers in there.
Sure, you have photos?
Yeah, I have to pull up my laptop. You guys wanna wait a minute?
Sure.
So I cut through there occasionally. It does look like the hydro seed took.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. A good storm could change
Yeah,
that pretty
it's
quick.
the end of that road. It's just
Yeah,
such a
it's
steep
bad.
slope that no matter what you planted there,
Yeah,
it'll wash out. I mean, if you put trees there, they'd wash out.
agreed. Yeah. Yep.
So like, yeah, we do need to go out there and take a look and see what it looks like.
I just feel like riprap.
Give me a second, sorry.
Sure, no, it's all right. Take your time.
yeah, and like when I worked with Fish and Wildlife, like in the fisheries, area, that was like my supervisor's arch nemesis was riprap. Like he spent his entire career trying to like do everything to
Get rid of riprap.
alternatives to riprap, like stabilization that was,
Well, what are the alternatives to riprap?
When they do trails, they do, you know, cutbacks, they do switchbacks, stuff like that, you know.
I mean, so,
for
yeah, a
trail.
lot of it was like in the grading and like the natural, like
Right.
height, like the geomorphology, making sure that the grade is appropriate, proper like vegetation, I mean.
So when
woodland
you have a
snakes,
steep
other
slope like this, what would the alternative be, do you think?
things. Well, I mean, I'm not an engineer.
Okay.
I mean,
So
I,
this is the top of the slope right now. So
Right.
that's all the
And how
meadow
about-
grass mix.
And how about the slope though?
Yeah, let me find some.
Geomorphology?
And what,
That's a great word.
what,
Zoom in. So this is from the silt fence looking up.
Is that this summer or?
That is in June, yeah.
we walked it. It was a
Steep.
workout. It was steep.
Very steep.
Okay.
Oh,
All right.
It's like a little valley. I mean, again, I think before we tried the riprap, maybe I'm all about the bees. You gotta remember, I'm all about the bees. So, I
Well,
mean, trying to get some
I know that now.
like weeds or, like a flowering,
Okay.
like a flowering plant that'll create more of a mesh maybe in that area and it'll be pretty and it'll help
The bees.
the bees.
Okay.
I just wanna make a comment to that.
Uh-huh.
My butterfly bush this year was very disappointing, it bloomed late. I
Sorry.
didn't get many butterflies. I got a ton of honeybees, I swear to God, it was unbelievable.
So there you go.
Lots. It is? All right, well, I got it controlled in a very small part of my yard.
What's that?
I have 2 of them.
Do you? If it's the one
Pretty
that's
purple
really
flowers.
butterfly bush, the like
Just one
Buddleia.
purple.
Buddleia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean like bee balm, like a good bee balm. And they, like do something like that. They're beautiful. They smell good. You can actually pull the leaves off and make a tea out of them.
Wow. So
So-
versatile.
Yeah.
In any event.
I mean, I think, we say we're not in the business of making recommendations, but I feel like we could get, an engineer or someone to make alternative, Ecotech to possibly make some alternative recommendations to,
Instead of the
Riprap,
riprap,
like-
it'll be less expensive and I think it'll be better for the environment for everybody
I'll
all the way
discuss with
around.
Joe, see what he's open.
Let's take a look first.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's take a look.
So-
first.
You don't object to continuing the public hearing to October 9th, correct?
No, no.
Well, that's good. That was the right answer. Do we have anything else scheduled for October 9th? Tim, right now?
No, I assume that the Rockland Road will be on that agenda.
We'll see.
We'll see.
All right, why don't we do this, because they're actually here?
Yep.
Why don't we continue the public hearing for Mr. Goodman and 9 Maria Avenue to October 9th at 7 PM?
Got it.
And can I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, it's a vote. All right, thank you very much, and,
Thank you.
On this issue,
I'm sorry,
Oh,
I
no,
apologize,
please.
sir.
No, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I live at 8 Maria Ave.
And your name is?
My name's Stephen Messier.
Are you across the street?
I am across the street.
Okay.
Yeah. And the biggest issue right now with that whole area, I mean, he did hydro seed, and the hydro seed did take, but on the bottom of that is a bunch of stumps. And the stumps are gonna disintegrate, and that whole thing's gonna go down.
Understood.
But the biggest thing is that the top of the road, it's a dead end, you guys have been there.
Yes.
And you had, so the road ends, and the way they had it before, they had it so that it went on to that land that he now owns and goes down. Actually, he owns at the top also. But he moved it so that the water went straight down, and he put a bunch of cement bags.
Oh, I saw
there.
those.
And if you look at it, you can see that it's all falling apart now. Like you said, a good rain, we've had several good rains, and each time we lose about a foot of the end of the road. So
Oh,
I think
that's a
the top
problem.
of the road, I don't know if that's the town's issue,
Well,
or if it's his issue, but.
well, I
it's gotta
think
be
it's
looked at.
probably, we may have jurisdiction over that, so we'll have to take a look when we're there,
Yeah,
okay, when we go over there.
yeah.
Did-
So on this
did
side
you
of the-
see any of
On
that
this side of
while
the
you were-
property, right at the top, you'll see that the
We did,
tire
I
at
did.
the top is going away.
Okay,
It's right at the end of the street, right when you go, I saw that exactly thing, and it rips down there. You could see where the water just ripped right
Yeah.
down. I saw it exactly. It was just sandbag, like it wasn't even, he didn't even try and do anything with it, it was just
Yeah, just
cement
see it
bags
down.
did,
in the bag.
did you contact DEP about this?
Did I? No.
Yes. You may wanna put a call into him,
Okay.
so, but in any event, we're gonna continue the public hearing on this, Mr. Messier until October 9th at 7 PM. And if you wanna come back and, we'll go out there, take a look.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you,
All right, thank you.
thank you, thank you. Thank you for speaking up, we're sorry about that.
No problem.
curious to see, looking forward to see what it looks like now.
The- There are some interesting issues because, as I'm sure you recall, we also have fined Mr. Goodman. We fined him because he had a problem with
God
superintendent.
bless you.
And it's been 4 months, maybe, 3 or 4 months since, I'll have to look at the minutes to see when we actually authorized the fine, so I would think there's a substantial amount of fines that he's responsible for, so we'll have to deal with that. I
The
just
work's not there, but those were pretty close to that 20, I think.
Yes, they were. That's right. So, I just have a couple of things. If you recall, we had made an inspection of Commerce Drive. That was the huge warehouse towards the back of the property. Because they had filed a request, a request for certificate of compliance. And I'm confident that we voted on it, and I thought that we had actually signed, or the signed certificate of compliance had gone out. And we would have been signed with electronic signatures, but I'm advised that they can't find it. So Tim has asked us to, if we would be willing to just sign it again.
Is that the one I started swearing about?
I don't think so. I probably was swearing about something else.
Okay, all right, okay.
This is the building way in the back,
Okay,
the
all
huge
right.
warehouse.
We walked it, we walked around the.
Yeah, we did. I know we,
Okay.
I'm not sure you were there. I know Megan was there, and Tom and I were there. What I don't know is, I don't know who voted to approve the certificate of compliance. I don't have those minutes. I know, why don't we do this? Mark wasn't on the board, so that's easy. Chris, I don't know if you attended that meeting or not, if you have a present memory.
Is it in June?
I think it was in June.
Yeah, like 50/50.
Yeah, that's right. So, but I think the four of us were present and would have approved it. So why don't the four of us sign it? And then if we, by reviewing the minutes, we see that maybe Chris was here, then we can make arrangements to have him sign too. Is that agreeable?
Absolutely.
All right, so let me pass this around.
Chris,
Oh, yeah, I'm Chris, nice to meet you.
I apologize.
This site is part of the industrial park off of Route 20, or on Route 20, is that correct?
Which side?
Commerce, yeah.
It's, yeah, it's Washington Street. It's that huge parcel that they cleared out.
Transportation.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
We've been there a bunch of times.
Is it the one with the couch?
No, that was the solar farm.
So fine.
Okay.
You can just give it back to me and then I'll give this to Tim. You can just pass that down. Thank you. And then, I got an email,
Here.
yesterday from, Chief, Coleman of the fire department. Apparently, they, we were supposed to receive, a filing for the new proposed police fire station or public safety complex, or whatever you wanna call it. And, the request was, they asked if we could, once that came in, if we could, make a site visit, because they're very anxious to get the project going, and they wanna start, and the way they start that is to demolish the existing, former restaurant building. So, I was under the impression that it was gonna be filed by today, which would be the deadline for the October 9th meeting. I don't know if we received it or not. Tim didn't get it, but Adam Menard may have gotten it. So we're gonna check with Adam, and then if in fact they made the filing deadline, then I'll reach out to you we have a couple weeks before the October 9th meeting. And so I'll reach out to see if we can schedule a site walk once we have the plan. If for some reason the notice of intent and the supporting documents were not submitted in time for the October 9th meeting, then we'll do it whenever they submit. Okay?
Wasn't, do you remember when we approved the, car dealership on the other side? And I think where the wetland was, on the side there, was, you could see where it was on the Chuck Steakhouse property.
Mhm.
So it's definitely on that side. I
Yeah, it
believe.
is. I mean, I would I mean, basically, I'm assuming it's just, it's, you know, they're within the 100-foot buffer zone. I mean, so I think once we see the site conditions as they exist, it'll be a pretty easy, application for us to review.
Mhm.
All right, and so we're gonna defer action on the order conditions for, Zero Cemetery Road. Is there any new business?
I'd just like to bring up a point.
Sure,
So,
please.
they said that they're going to do one analysis for about every 500 cubic yards of fill. So if a truck carries 30 yards of fill, one of those big trucks, that's 17 trucks. So 17 trucks come in, they inspect one of them.
That's what I mean.
That's scary.
That's
Well,
really scary.
What
Yeah.
we can do is, I mean, again, we, you know, write the order conditions, and so that's why I wanna give it some, I wanna think about it. I will tell you this, I am encouraged by the fact that DEP really does have eyes on this. And I know from, not from my experience on the Conservation Commission, but in other matters, that their review process tends to be very extensive, and the phase process to even to get an AUL for a property, the oversight's pretty impressive. So, but having said that, Michelle, you know, I think they seem to be willing to continue with the monitoring wells.
Right.
We can ask them to provide us with quarterly, you know, reports. Again, over the next couple of weeks, I'd like us to think about we want to go into that order of conditions.
Yeah, because it's just, it's that pushback, because again, I'm seeing, like, they're saying that they're monitoring it through their construction site, and then they're saying, yeah, we don't have to do that anymore after construction. After it's done, it's over. It's
Well-
gonna take a while for any toxins or any problem to get through that soil and into the water table that drains directly into Stoneville or gets into that well. That's
Right.
gonna take some time.
Right.
No, I understand that, but, I mean, I'm not playing devil's advocate here, but what they're saying is that the RCS1 soils are less of a problem than what's already existing on site. And those materials have probably been on site for what, 50, 60, 100 years?
Right.
And so whatever sort of leaching or impact you would expect to have happened would have already happened.
But
Yeah.
those soils aren't there yet, and we don't know what they are or
And-
where they're coming from.
And that's why we can ask for the testing.
Right.
Okay, all right, I think we're on the same page.
Yep.
And in terms of Vinyl Street, I mean, you know, these people need to show up, because we're not gonna consider anything, without them being here. So, if there's no, other new business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's a vote, I approve too. All right, everyone, thank you very much.
We're out.
All right.
This conference is no longer being recorded.